This hat's looking pretty rugged. It's been through a lot. It's hiked the entire Pacific Northwest Trail, that's 1,200 miles, and then the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail, and a lot of other trails in between. I think it's time to retire it. Yep, I got a rock flag and hike hat. It's awesome! Welcome back to another episode of Rock, Flag, and Hike with your host, Just Sean. And as you can see, I am not on the trail anymore. If you don't know what happened or need a little catch up, go back and check out episode 32. Basically, I was hiking through Maine. I fell, hurt my knee bad enough that it was time to get off trail. The fall happened. I was afraid would threaten the rest of my hiking. Slipped and fell. Oh, it's probably about 8 feet. And luckily I was able to land mostly on my feet. But it put a bunch of force, I don't know, on my left knee, and now I'm having trouble moving it. Overall, I hiked 4,650 miles. If you're new to this channel, there's about 32 other videos you need to watch to catch up to where I am now, but I'll tell you what, it was an epic adventure. Am I disappointed that I didn't accomplish my original goal, which was to hike the calendar year Triple Crown? No, not at all. Haven't been able to hike pretty much the entire Appalachian Trail. I only have 230 miles left of that, and the entire Pacific Crest Trail. I'm really happy and really proud with what I've done. It was a fantastic year to hike. If you wanted to experience the trail in its purest form, 2020, for all the insanity going on, it was the year to do it. It was a hell of an adventure. So let's get into some of the details surrounding, how hiking for 7.5 months breaks down. Looking over everything, it looked like I have hiked, gotta check my notes down there, about 218 days. I think about 204 days of that was actual hiking. Those other days were zeros, flying back and forth, coast to coast, and then also taking a little bit of extra time. When I got Giardia, I took a week off there. So yeah, about 208 days. 204 days of hiking. I took a total of 5 zeros. And now how I'm kind of calculating that is, those are unforced zeros. Those are the zeros that I chose to take. I'm not counting flying across to the trails, and I'm not counting the week off I took for the Giardia. I mean, if you want to count those, you can. But I think the longest period that I went in between 1,385 miles before taking my first zero. And I'm counting flying across country, that being my zero in this case. I remember that I stayed at a trail angel's house. I'd gotten off trail that day, and then the next day I was flying out to Cali, and that evening I was sleeping on the PCT. So it wasn't a long break, and I didn't really feel I needed one. My total miles per day average with everything turned out to be a little bit lower than what I'd wanted to. It was about 23 miles per day, depending on how you calculate it. Obviously, in some places, my daily mileage was a lot higher than others. It was lower on the Appalachian Trail, especially as I got further north and through some of that that winter hiking I had to do. Where sometimes it was hard to get in 25. I did hit 30 a lot of times in the southern section of the AT, but it wasn't until I got out to the PCT that I was really able to open things up, and I was able to do consistent 30-mile days, especially through Oregon. I finished that in 15 days. Just missed the Oregon Challenge by a day, and I wasn't even trying. And then even through the North Cascades, I was doing back-to-back 30-mile days, and on the very last day of the PCT, I actually hit 36 miles, and felt pretty good about it. But some days I'd feel better than others. When you're doing that much hiking, your energy levels are going to fluctuate in strange ways. I did mention I have 230 miles left of the Appalachian Trail, which where I got off, man, for those of you that have done the AT up in Maine, like that is some seriously rugged territory. Beautiful, but super rugged. And coming back from the PCT to the AT, well, it was a tough grind out for my body. I've always said the PCT is way more technically challenging, and it's also graded for horses. So, than the AT, where the AT sees a mountain, it just goes right up the spine, where on the PCT, you got to go up a mountain, but at least it's going to be like 50 switchbacks. And that may take longer, but I appreciated that a lot more. Question that I've been trying to answer myself is, has my opinion changed about being able to do a calendar year Triple Crown? I don't think so. I still think it's pretty reasonable to do. The hardest part, the one thing that has changed for me in my thought process behind calendar year Triple Crown is not the physical part, it's the mental part. And I always knew that the mental part was going to be a big part of it, but I think I underestimated what it would actually be. Towards the end of the PCT, mentally I was really starting to feel a little burnt out. And then when I got over the AT, I was ready to go. I was just going to grind it out, whatever it took. But when I hurt my knee and decided I could have waited, a week and a half. I could have, jumped up and at least summited Katahdin. But I just figured, you know what, that's my sign, and I'm ready to go. But I think that, as long as you have to get a couple things right. You have to get your weather windows right. You have to have it like a normal year. This year at the end of the hiking season on the PCT, at least, it seemed like the entire West Coast caught on fire. That makes it real tough for southbounders, and they're already, pretty crunched for time. Originally, if you go back to a way earlier episode in the beginning, I think when I was announcing that I was going to attempt the calendar year Triple Crown, one of the things that I would have done differently, had I been more sure, I was only giving myself a 30% chance of being able to finish all 3 trails, which is, I would have done things slightly differently. My original game plan was hike up to Harriman on the AT, fly over, do the PCT up to Kennedy Meadows South, and then fly back over to the AT, finish that, which I didn't. You can look back in one of the earlier episodes when I had to get off because of a snowstorm in Maine. I was going to finish the AT and then fly over, finish the PCT, and then hit the CDT southbound. If I had to do it again, I would do things differently. I still would have done the same amount on the Appalachian Trail and then flown over and done the same amount on the PCT, but then I would have gone over and started the CDT going northbound from the Mexico border. One of the reasons I chose not to do that, once COVID struck, a lot of the support services weren't there anymore, and the CDT is a trail that I know the least amount about, so I didn't want to have to wing it as far as water sources. But if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't do it over again. If I were to do things differently, I would have done the desert section of the CDT and then flown back over to finish the AT, flow back over to finish the PCT, and then I would have started the CDT southbound. As far as doing the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail, I think that's a really reasonable hike. You have to have things set in order. You gotta have the finances to do it, and you gotta have the time to do it. And a relatively normal year in terms of weather and snow. But I would actually like to see more people start, attempt to do both those trails. I know a lot of people, it's tough just to do the Appalachian Trail, absolutely, and it's tough just to do the Pacific Crest Trail. But I think if you think that you have it in you to try it, go for it. It's nothing to lose. You're gonna have a hell of an adventure either way. At this point in time, I'm about a month off trail. A lot of people will talk about, after completing a big hike like this, is post-trail depression. I have not experienced those feelings when I'm done hiking. When I was done with the PNT, my body was broken, like my feet were wrecked, and I needed to just sit around for a while and kind of decompress. But I had a job to go back to, and that was just part of the next adventure of my life. And the same thing is true now. I've gotten done with this huge adventure. I'm looking for a job. I'm an architect in the default world. If anybody's looking, I'm available. So I'm currently looking for a job, and while I wish I had one a little bit faster, this is all just part of the next adventure of my life. I moved from Philadelphia to Portland, Oregon, so I have a brand new city to get to know, and I love it. Now, it was a little bit difficult when the whole West Coast caught on fire and I couldn't go outside for 11 days. That was a big change for me, but I guess it's just kind of on par for how 2020 has gone. But post-trail depression, I think one way, you got to have a plan after you get off trail, whether, planning to get back to work, planning another adventure, whatever it is. You can't just plan your through hike and then nothing afterwards. You got to be prepared, and basically keep active too. I lost 25 pounds doing all this hiking. My game plan right now is I'm starting to run, although it's been kind of difficult with my busted knee. It's gotten a little bit better, but still hurts. Running, yoga, even just going out on a trail around Portland. That's one of the reasons why I moved out here, because of just the, the availability of outdoor adventures. Another thing that's keeping me motivated is also doing these vlogs. And this is kind of, like I said, this is my decompression. This is my debrief, and where I get to share a lot of things that I've learned. I was in an REI store the other day, and I got involved with a conversation with a customer and an REI worker about water filters, and I started talking and realized that I have all this information and no real way to, get it out, to share it. It's a pretty common thing for hikers to experience that feeling. They just have all this stuff that they want to talk about and get out. But, your family, your friends are like, yeah, you hiked that far, cool. Yeah, what time is it? They don't really know what it's like. But not their fault, they just didn't do the same thing that we did. So some of the future vlog posts that I'm gonna put up, we've all followed other vloggers pre and post through hike, and you have your gear reviews, things like that, which I'm going to do a version of that. I'm going to do my take on it. I'm not going to get real technical about stuff, because a lot of those things you can check out the manufacturer's website and boom, there you go, you got your weight. But like my Plexamid tent, I didn't really do a pre-hike review of it because I hadn't used it before. But now, after it's gone through the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail, I know a lot about that tent, and so I want to share that kind of stuff with people. How going stoveless was, how my Hyperlight mountain gear Southwest 2400 worked, 37-liter pack, then how my sleep system worked, my rain gear, even my shoes, all that. I want to be able to share that in a bunch of future vlogs. Other things that I want to cover some controversial stuff, like why I said it was a good idea for me to stay on trail but not other people, and pooping in the woods and things like that. So those are all things that I want to share with people, and I know how I was before I started my through hikes, is that I wanted to listen to anybody and everyone with experience, so I could just find that one nugget of missing information, and sometimes it was for a tent I was going to get, or a pack, or things like that. You just don't get all you want from one person talking about it. You get it from a lot of people talking about it in different ways. So I want to be able to do that in my future vlogs. As far as my future hiking plans, I'm going to be doing a lot of different shoots around the Pacific Northwest, shorter trails, things like that. As far as more long distance hiking, I'm possibly planning to do a yo-yo attempt of the Pacific Northwest Trail, maybe, or I'll just do the CDT going southbound, maybe northbound, we'll see. There's also the 230 miles of the AT that I need to complete, as well as Guthook just put out a map for the International Appalachian Trail in the north section going into Canada. So that seems pretty interesting. There's also another trail that is totally unknown because it's brand new. It's called the Idaho Centennial Trail. and it's by a group of guys who have a channel called Wild West Trails. And that looks like a pretty spectacular trail that I'm looking into. So we'll see. There are lots of plans. Obviously at the moment it's about getting a job and making some money. So that's what I'm doing currently and what I'm planning for the future. Other local hikes that I really want to do is I want to circumnavigate Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, and Mount Rainier. Mount Hood is on my current radar. And I might even want to try to do that during colder winter months. I definitely want to expand to some more winter hiking. I really enjoy it. Maybe not like super long distance stuff, but just, you know, being able to pack on a pair of cross-country skis, go out into the woods and survive. That's really a fun time for me. If you haven't noticed, I like to push things to the extreme. I also might winter backpack around Crater Lake, because I heard in the winter you're allowed to set up your tent on the rim of Crater Lake, so that would be really awesome as well. One of the other trails that I'm looking into as well is the Great Divide Trail. That is basically the Continental Divide Trail of Canada. It's relatively short. I think it's like 700 some miles, but one of the more rugged trails that I've seen that I could do. That would be really awesome. And also the possibility of doing some combination of the GDT and finishing the AT, so I can still get a lot of miles, but, you know, not take up too much time. Well, that about wraps it up for this decompression episode. I hope it got you excited for future videos. It's getting me excited, and, you know, I'm excited all the time, so I'm pumped for this. I'm really enjoying sharing this content. To end this episode, I'm going to share a bunch of footage showing me falling, because I can't stop laughing at myself for that. So until next time, keep on blazing. Oh man, slipped on some ice against the water, just crushed my shoulder, my hat popped off, my water bottle fell down the hill. Is that I fell and didn't hurt myself. I don't know if I'm gonna keep that one or not. Hey tree, wake up, wake up, wake up. Time to wake up. Whoop. Oh. Guess I deserve that one. The trail kind of finally got me. First spill of the day. I feel like a turtle. Oh, massive yard sale. Didn't break anything. Okay.